Your kitchen pantry, the place you trust to nourish your family, seems safe, simple, right?
Yeah, it feels like home base, food-wise.
But what if some of those familiar things on the shelves are holding secrets? Secrets the food industry might prefer you didn't really dig into.
It's a strange thought, isn't it? That the things made to feed us could also be, well, sources of hidden stuff, maybe even worry.
Exactly. We grab things, maybe glance at the front, the calories, whatever, and just toss it in the cart.
Sure, happens all the time.
But there's this whole other world hiding on the back label in that tiny print.
Ah, the ingredient list.
Right. And we're talking about food additives, stuff put in there on purpose.
And the scale of it, I mean, when we looked at the material you sent over, one number just kind of jumps out right away.
Which one?
In the U.S., over 3,000 approved additives. 3,000.
Wow. Okay, 3,000. And then you compare that to somewhere like the EU, much stricter.
Yeah, their list is closer to just 300.
300.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference, like tenfold.
It tells you right off the bat that something's fundamentally different in how we approach what goes into our food supply.
It really does. So, okay, for this deep dive, we're using the material you gathered to sort of pull back that curtain.
Good plan.
We want to look at just how many additives there are, why they're even used, how they manage to stay hidden sometimes.
And the potential impacts, right, on health.
Exactly. Really get informed about what's actually hiding in the food you might be eating every day.
So let's start with the basics. What's their job? Why are they there?
Well, they're in most processed foods for a reason. They're not just there. They have functions. The material lists quite a few.
Right, like shelf life. That's a big one. Making
now.
food last longer.
Yep. And enhancing flavor, obviously. Making things taste more.
Boosting appeal, too, with color. Making it look brighter, more appetizing.
Improving texture is another key one. Smoother, thicker,
And sometimes, yeah, reducing other things, like using artificial sweeteners instead of sugar.
They're like the stage crew behind the scenes, making bread stay weirdly soft for ages, or giving candies those super bright, almost unnatural colors.
And it's not just one big category either. The source material breaks them down, these direct additives.
Yeah, you've got preservatives, things like sodium benzoate. Their job is stopping spoilage, keeping microbes away.
Then your artificial sweeteners, aspartame, sucralose, that kind of thing. Sweetness without the sugar calories.
Colorings, those dyes like red 40, yellow 5, just for looks, basically.
Flavor enhancers. MSG is the famous one, but others too. Making things taste richer or stronger.
Fun tense, yeah.
And then emulsifiers and thickeners, stuff like carrageenan, polysorbates. They affect the mouthfeel, the consistency. Think smooth sauces, stable yogurts.
Okay, so that's the what and the why. But the puzzle really starts when you try to actually find them, right? It's not always obvious.
Exactly. If they have jobs to do, why does the material make it so clear it's often really hard for you, the shopper, to know what's what?
This is where the source really digs into what it calls deception on your shelves. These aren't just mistakes. They seem like deliberate tactics.
Okay, like what?
Well, first up is vague labeling. The material points out how terms like natural flavor or even just spices can actually cover like dozens of different chemicals.
Dozens, wow.
Yeah, and the kicker is the exact mix is often a trade secret, so they don't have to tell you what's in that flavor.
So natural strawberry flavor might not have much strawberry involved, just chemicals designed to mimic it.
Could be. And the source says over half, 50% of packaged foods in the U.S. contain these kinds of ambiguous ingredients.
Over half. That's huge. You think you're reading the list, but it's partly hidden.
It really is. Then there are the regulatory loopholes. The GRAS loophole gets specific mention, generally recognized as safe.
GRAS.
Right.
What's the issue there?
Well, the surprising thing is it allows companies to basically self-certify. An additive is safe. They can hire their own experts, make the declaration, and boom, it's in the food supply.
Without rigorous FDA review necessarily.
Often with much less scrutiny than you'd probably assume.
Yeah.
And that seems directly connected to that massive number difference we talked about.
Ah, the 3,000 plus here versus 300 in the EU. Different standards? Different loopholes, maybe?
Seems likely. Another tactic mentioned is ingredient splitting.
Ingredient splitting.
What's that? It's where they list, say, sugar in multiple forms. Instead of just sugar, 25 grams, they might list cane sugar, then further down dextrose, then corn syrup solids.
Ah, I see. So each individual one looks smaller on the list, even though the total sugar is high, makes it seem less sugary overall.
Exactly. Kind of pushes the meat offender down the list. The material also mentions maltodextrin as a common filler, especially in healthy foods, doing a similar thing.
Sneaky.
And then there's the front of package stuff, those misleading claims. The material has good examples,
Like what?
like low fat, but it's packed with sugar or additives to make it taste okay. Or made with real fruit when there's barely any actual fruit in there.
Right, or natural. That term is so loosely regulated, the material says it means very little about additives or how healthy it really is.
Totally. Or putting no cholesterol on peanut butter. Plants don't have cholesterol anyway. It's true, but meaningless.
Sounds impressive, though.
And whole grains might just mean a tiny bit is whole grain, unless it clearly says 100% whole grain. They're banking on you reading the big print, not the small details.
It really does paint a picture of intentional obfuscation, doesn't it? Making things hard to understand.
Yeah, it feels that way. And this hiding matters because, as the material shows, a lot of these common additives are linked to potential health worries.
Okay, so let's get into some specifics. The usual suspects, the material flags, like preservatives, sodium benzoate, nitrates, BHA.
Right. You find those in things like cured meats, bacon, hot dogs, also chips, some baked goods.
And the risks.
Well, the material notes nitrates can form nitrosamines when heated. Those are linked to cancer. Think cooking bacon. BHA is flagged as a possible carcinogen too, and linked to allergies for some people.
Okay, what about artificial sweeteners? Aspartame, sucralose, Ace K, they're everywhere in diet stuff.
Yet diet sodas, sugar-free snacks. The material points to potential issues beyond just being sweet. Things like disrupting your metabolism, maybe messing with your gut bacteria.
Gut bacteria, okay. And some people report headaches or sensitivities too, right?
They do, yeah. Anecdotally, definitely. Then flavor enhancers, MSG, but also those vague natural flavors.
Found in savory snacks, ready meals, lots of places.
And for people sensitive, they might cause headaches, nausea. And again, that natural flavor thing is key. You just don't know what chemicals are creating that taste.
Right, it's a black box. Food dyes seem more obvious. Red 40, yellow 5, blue 1. In candies, cereals, drinks.
Super obvious.
Yeah.
The material links these to hyperactivity in some children. It's a strong enough link that the EU puts warning labels on them.
Warning labels, wow. And some U.S. schools have banned them.
Yeah, according to the source. That emulsifiers and thickeners, carrageenan, polysorbates, in dairy, sauces, lots of processed foods for texture.
What's the concern there?
Recent studies suggest they could potentially harm gut health, maybe interfere with the gut lining, or change your gut microbiome balance.
Which could lead to inflammation or metabolic problems down the line.
Potentially, yeah. And antioxidants like BHT used in cereals, chips, to stop fats going bad.
The material flags BHT for possible hormone disruption and maybe cancer risks.
It also mentions the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen Guide to Food Chemicals. That calls out things like potassium bromate in bread, a possible carcinogen, and propylparaben in tortillas, linked to reproductive issues.
So individual concerns. But what about mixing them all together?
That's the cocktail effect the material talks about. We don't just eat one additive. We eat lots every day from different foods.
And the combined effect, we don't really know.
It's seriously understudied, but the potential for them to add up to increase risks for chronic conditions together. That's the worry.
That cumulative load, it makes sense. It's not just one thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And connecting that to the bigger health picture, the material links diets high in these ultra-processed foods full of additives to major chronic diseases.
Like obesity, type 2 diabetes.
Yep. Heart disease too. And certain cancers, specifically mentioning nitrates and colorectal cancer again.
And the point about artificial sweeteners possibly disrupting metabolism fits here too, potentially contributing to diabetes long term.
Right. We touched on the behavioral links, dyes, and hyperactivity.
And allergies or sensitivities. Sulfites, MSG, preservatives triggering asthma, headaches, nausea in susceptible people. The material covers that too.
Hormonal disruption is another big one mentioned. BHA, BHT, even chemicals from packaging, like BPA, potentially acting like endocrine disruptors.
Meaning they could interfere with your body's natural hormones, affecting development, metabolism.
That's the concern raised, yeah. And the gut microbiome impact comes up again strongly.
With emulsifiers and sweeteners potentially reducing beneficial gut bacteria diversity based on animal studies and FAO reviews mentioned.
Yeah, leading possibly to more inflammation, metabolic issues. It's a complex web.
So it really paints a picture of constant low-level exposure from many angles, creating this potential toxic burden over time with the long-term combo effects still pretty unclear.
Okay, so that's quite a lot to take in. Given all the amount, the hidden nature, the potential risks, what can you, the listener, actually do? How do you navigate this?
Right. Let's shift to solutions. The material offers some solid strategies in its Reclaiming Your Pantry section.
And the first, maybe the most important one, read the ingredient list.
Absolutely. Make a habit of ignoring the flashy stuff on the front, flip it over, look for shorter lists generally means less processing.
And watch out for those chemical-sounding names you can't pronounce or vague terms like natural flavor. If the list is super long, that's often a red flag.
Definitely. And the simplest way to avoid most of this, choose whole foods.
Yeah. Opt for the fresh stuff, fruits, vegetables, plain meat or fish, whole grains like oats or rice, before they get turned into something in a package.
And cooking from scratch when you can, that gives you total control.
It really does. Another tip is to know key additives to watch out for.
Like using resources, maybe that EWG Dirty Dozen guide mentioned, to identify the big ones, BHA, Red 40, carrageenan, and whatever you decide you want to avoid.
And, related to that, maintain skepticism of claims on the front. Don't just trust low-fat or natural. Check the ingredients. Does whole grain mean 100% or just a sprinkle?
Good point. Also, check serving sizes. Sometimes they're tiny to make the numbers look better per serving than what you'd actually eat.
Oh yeah, the servings per container. About 3.5-foot trick. While things like organic labels aren't a magic bullet, seeking certifications can help sometimes, but you still need to check the list.
True. And maybe supporting transparent brands. Companies that are upfront and try to minimize additives, use your dollars that way.
And finally, the material briefly mentions advocating for change, supporting efforts for clearer, stricter labeling laws, more transparency.
Look, it can feel overwhelming changing everything at once. The material suggests starting small.
Yeah. Like how?
Maybe just pick one or two processed things you buy a lot. Find a whole food swap for them. Just gradually detox the pantry. Small steps.
Okay, that makes sense. So quick recap. Additives. They're everywhere in processed foods, often hidden by vague labels, maybe helped by loopholes like GRAS.
And while effects vary, many are linked to potential health issues, sensitivities, maybe contributing to chronic diseases long term, especially in that unknown cocktail effect.
But the key takeaway is that being informed gives you power. Reading lists, questioning claims, choosing whole foods more often. These are real things you can do.
Absolutely. It's about taking back some control.
It really does make you stop and think, though. If so many common additives have these potential question marks, and we still don't fully grasp their combined effects long term, what other questions should we be asking about, this whole industrial food system that seems to value shelf life and appearance so highly, maybe sometimes more than clear information or your potential long-term health?
That's a heavy question.
It is. So maybe next time you're shopping, take an extra second.
Yeah.
Look at that label. Ask yourself, what's really hiding in your food?